There is a truth hidden in the heart's quietest chamber, one that, when ignored, keeps the soul shackled in pain. It is a truth about the mother, the woman who first gave you life, love, and sometimes wounds that echo in your bones. You may carry her story like a shadow you cannot shake, a weight you cannot lay down. But hear me now. You will never find healing, never find peace, until you face this truth with courage, with honesty, with the fierce love that only truth can ignite. Today, we step into that fire together. The mother is the first mirror, the very first reflection we ever see in this world. Long before we learn to recognize ourselves in glass or water, before the world tells us who we should be, we see her face, hear her voice, and feel the weight of her presence as the template of our own identity. In her eyes, we search for acceptance, love, and understanding. Her approval becomes the foundation on which we build our sense of worth. And yet, when we speak of this mirror, it is not always clear or kind. For within her reflection lies not only the warmth of nurturing, but also the shadows of her own struggles, disappointments, and unhealed wounds. To confront the truth about your mother is to confront your own reflection, because in her you see parts of yourself that have been shaped, distorted, or hidden by her light and shadow alike. This mirror does not lie. It reveals the roots of your fears, your strengths, and your wounds. The tenderness you seek and the pain you resist both dwell in that reflection. Sometimes the face staring back at you is not the mother you wish for, but the mother you inherited, complex, imperfect, carrying the burdens of her own past. She is the vessel through which your earliest lessons about love and rejection, safety and danger, belonging and alienation were poured. When you shy away from this truth, you are turning your back on a part of yourself, refusing to meet the reflection that calls for recognition. To stand before this mirror is to accept that your story is woven with threads of both grace and fracture. It is to acknowledge that the woman who raised you may have been wounded, limited, or lost in ways that ripple into your life. The reflection might be jagged, distorted, or blurred by generations of unspoken pain, but it is still yours. You cannot heal what you refuse to see, and so facing this mirror becomes an act of courage and self-love, a willingness to look beyond blame and anger, to understand the mother not only as a person, but as a force that has shaped your very soul. When you do this, you begin to reclaim the power hidden in her reflection, and through that, the power to heal yourself. Unspoken wounds passed through generations shape your inner world like invisible rivers, carving deep canyons in the landscape of your soul. These are the silent legacies, the pain and trauma that travel not in spoken words, but in the quiet spaces between them, the sighs left unheard, the grief left unspoken, the anger locked away behind smiles and forced peace. They move through family lines like a shadow that never fully lifts, passing from mother to daughter, father to son without ceremony or acknowledgement. These wounds do not fade with time. Instead, they embed themselves in your cells, weaving into your fears, your doubts, your patterns of love and loss. You might find yourself carrying burdens you never chose, inherited sorrows that you struggle to understand or name. Sometimes it is a heaviness in your chest when nothing seems wrong, a quiet anxiety that curls in the back of your mind, or an inexplicable ache in your heart that longs for healing. These are the echoes of wounds that were never tended to, moments of abandonment, rejection, or silence that ripple through the fabric of your being. Each generation passes these invisible scars down like a whispered secret, too painful to speak aloud, yet too powerful to ignore. The unspoken nature of these wounds makes them elusive, difficult to confront, yet their influence is profound. They shape how you trust, how you love, how you see yourself and the world around you. You may find yourself repeating old stories, reenacting dramas that have no clear beginning or end, caught in cycles of pain you cannot trace but feel deeply. Your inner world becomes a mosaic of inherited grief and unacknowledged trauma, a terrain where healing feels both necessary and impossible. Yet, in recognizing these unspoken wounds, you begin to unravel the threads that bind you. You start to see that your struggles are not just personal failings, but part of a larger tapestry woven by those who came before you. This awareness is the first step toward breaking the cycle, toward honoring your ancestors' pain without allowing it to define or destroy you. To heal, you must bring these silent stories into the light, give voice to what has long been suppressed, and claim your own space beyond the shadows of generational sorrow. Healing demands facing uncomfortable truths, standing courageously in the light of what has been hidden, rather than retreating into the warm but deceptive embrace of nostalgia or denial. It is a call to strip away the veils that soften the edges of pain, to look unflinchingly at the fractures within your story, fractures that may have been ignored, minimized, or rewritten to protect fragile hearts. Nostalgia tempts us with a past polished by selective memory, where the hurts are softened, the wounds forgotten, and the cracks unseen. Denial, on the other hand, erects walls built from silence and avoidance, protecting us from the rawness of truth, but also imprisoning us in shadows that stifle growth. To heal, one must step beyond these comfortable illusions and confront the realities that once seemed unbearable. It requires meeting the past not as an enemy to be vanquished or a memory to be erased, but as a teacher whose lessons, however harsh, are vital to transformation. This is not a journey for the faint of heart. It asks you to face the parts of yourself and your history that ache with sorrow, anger, regret, or confusion. It is the brave act of holding your pain in your hands without flinching, recognizing that healing begins not with forgetting or pretending, but with acknowledgement and acceptance. Hiding behind rose-tinted memories or a facade of denial may provide temporary comfort, but it keeps the spirit tethered to wounds that demand to be seen. True healing invites you into the discomfort of truth, the discomfort of growth, where the heart must unravel old stories to make way for new narratives of strength and wholeness. It is in this raw and often painful space that transformation is born, where you can finally release the weight of illusions and step fully into your power. To heal means to face what has been buried, to embrace the complexity of your journey, and to rise from the ashes of denial into the light of authenticity. The mother-child bond is complex, woven with threads of sacred love and tender nurture, yet also shadowed by pain and frailty. It is the first relationship we know, the primal connection that shapes our earliest understanding of safety, trust, and belonging. In the mother's arms, we find warmth and comfort, a refuge from the coldness of the world. But alongside this sacred space lies the shadow, moments when that safety falters, when love is imperfect or absent, when pain seeps quietly into the spaces meant for joy. This bond is not a simple tale of devotion. It is a tapestry of contradictions, where tenderness and turmoil often coexist, sometimes blurring the lines between care and neglect, presence and absence. Within this complex connection, a child learns not only how to love, but also how to survive wounds inflicted by the very source of life. The mother is the first teacher of the heart, yet sometimes the lessons she imparts are tangled with her own unhealed sorrows, fears, or limitations. The sacredness of this bond does not erase the human flaws and struggles carried between two souls bound by blood and spirit. It is here, in this intimate dance of giving and receiving love, that joy and heartbreak become inseparable companions. The mother-child relationship holds the power to heal and the potential to hurt, making it both a sanctuary and a battlefield. To understand this bond is to recognize the depth of its complexity, the way love can be fierce and fragile all at once, how it can nurture growth while also leaving invisible scars. The shadows within this relationship are not signs of failure alone, but echoes of the human condition itself, reminders that love is not always perfect, that pain is sometimes passed down alongside care. Yet, even in its shadows, this bond carries the possibility of profound transformation, inviting both mother and child to face their truths, to forgive and to heal. The mother-child connection is a sacred story written in the language of both light and shadow, and it is within this duality that the soul's deepest work often begins. Forgiveness begins with acknowledgement, a courageous act of facing the raw truth of harm done, without softening its edges or dismissing its impact. It is not a call to forget the wounds etched deep within the heart, nor an invitation to excuse the pain inflicted by another. Instead, forgiveness stands as a solemn recognition of reality, an honest confrontation with the hurt that refuses to be buried beneath silence or denial. To forgive is to name the hurt, to honor the grief it brings, and to hold that pain without becoming consumed by it. It is a deliberate choice to see the brokenness clearly, to accept the weight of what was done, and to understand the full scope of its effect on your soul. This process demands a fierce kind of honesty, a refusal to gloss over the truth in the name of peace or convenience. Forgiveness is not a gift granted lightly or without struggle. It is a profound inner work that asks you to face the shadow that harm casts over your life. It requires you to move beyond anger and bitterness, yes, but only after you have allowed yourself to feel those emotions fully and without shame. To skip this step is to build forgiveness on a fragile foundation of denial, one that will not sustain the spirit through its trials. True forgiveness is rooted in clarity and strength, a clear-eyed decision to release the hold that pain has over your being without negating the reality of the harm. Acknowledgement in forgiveness also means embracing your own humanity, the vulnerability of being hurt, the courage to confront that hurt, and the wisdom to choose healing over perpetual suffering. It is not a sign of weakness or submission. It is a declaration of sovereignty over your own heart. Forgiveness, when grounded in acknowledgement, becomes a path to liberation. It frees you from the chains of resentment that bind you to past injuries and opens the door to compassion, both for yourself and for the one who caused the pain. It is a journey that honors the truth of your experience while inviting transformation and peace, not by erasing the past, but by changing your relationship to it. The mother's flaws do not define your worth. This is a truth that must be spoken with clarity and conviction, for it is easy to carry the weight of her imperfections as if they were your own. Yet, within the complexity of her humanity, her mistakes, her shortcomings, there lies no measure of your value or the depth of your spirit. You are not the sum of her failures, not the reflection of her unmet dreams or unhealed wounds. Your essence is distinct, sacred, and whole, deserving of love and respect independent of the brokenness you may have inherited. To recognize this is to claim your own identity, free from the shadows cast by another's struggles. However, ignoring the reality of her flaws does not serve your growth. It halts the journey of understanding and healing that your soul longs for. To turn away from these uncomfortable truths is to build walls that keep you locked in patterns of pain and confusion. Growth requires facing the imperfect mother not with judgment or condemnation, but with the honest gaze of acceptance and discernment. It demands a courageous willingness to see her as she truly was, a human being shaped by her own battles, limitations, and context, while refusing to let her failings dictate the course of your life. This confrontation is not an act of rebellion, but of liberation, a necessary step to untangle the threads of inherited pain and to weave a new story of strength and self-awareness. Acknowledging her flaws does not mean diminishing the love or respect you hold. Rather, it deepens it by inviting compassion grounded in reality. It opens the door to healing wounds passed down across generations and frees you from the invisible chains that bind your identity to her imperfections. In this space, you begin to reclaim your narrative, to write a future where your worth is not contingent on forgiveness sought or given, but on the truth of your own existence. Growth blooms from this soil of acceptance and courage, where the mother's flaws become not a prison, but a passageway toward freedom and wholeness. The silence around maternal pain is a cage, an invisible prison forged from unspoken words, hidden wounds, and the weight of generations left unheard. This silence, thick and suffocating, wraps itself around the heart like heavy chains, binding the spirit in a quiet torment that often goes unnoticed yet cuts deep. It is a silence born not of peace, but of fear and denial, fear of rocking the boat, of breaking sacred taboos, of confronting the raw edges of love and hurt intertwined. Within this stillness, pain festers, growing roots in the dark soil of secrecy, feeding on the absence of acknowledgement and the refusal to name what aches beneath the surface. To break this silence is an act of profound courage and fierce liberation. It is the first crack in the cage that begins to let light and air into a space long deprived of both. Speaking the truth of maternal pain, no matter how difficult, messy, or complex, is not betrayal, but a reclaiming of voice and power. It is a refusal to let the weight of silence dictate the narrative of your life or the lives of those who come after you. This breaking of silence is not just a personal release. It is a communal offering, a call for others trapped in the same cage to find the strength to speak and be heard. In breaking the silence, the wounds held in secret begin to breathe, to loosen their grip, and to start the slow work of healing. Liberation comes not from ignoring the pain or pretending it never existed, but from naming it aloud, from witnessing it with eyes unflinching and hearts open. It is a step toward reclaiming the truth of your story, unshackled from shame or repression. When the silence breaks, it reverberates through the corridors of memory and legacy, shaking loose the chains that have bound generations. It invites the possibility of connection, not just to the mother whose pain was hidden, but to your own soul, yearning for freedom and authenticity. In this breaking, the cage falls away, and what remains is a spirit made whole through the courage to speak, to listen, and to heal. You carry your mother's stories within you, woven into the very fabric of your being like threads of memory, emotion, and inherited experience. These stories are a tapestry of love and loss, strength and struggle, joy and pain. They pulse through your veins as both gift and burden, shaping how you see the world and how you understand yourself. Yet, though these stories are etched deep, they do not hold the power to chain you unless you allow them to. You are not doomed to walk the same paths she walked, to repeat the cycles that may have brought her sorrow or limitation. The past may inform you, but it does not define your destiny. Within you lies a choice, a sacred opportunity to honor the stories that shaped you while consciously deciding which parts to carry forward and which to transform or leave behind. This discernment is a powerful act of self-love and liberation. To recognize the influence of your mother's history without surrendering your own voice is to claim the right to rewrite the narrative. You are the author of your life's story, not merely an echo of hers. The patterns passed down through generations can be broken, healed, and reimagined with intention and courage. This is the essence of growth. standing on the foundation of what came before, yet reaching toward a horizon only you can define. You do not inherit a destiny of pain, limitation, or silence. You inherit the chance to heal, to break free, and to rise. The stories you carry are neither chains nor curses, but reminders of resilience and the complexity of human connection. In embracing this truth, you begin to disentangle your soul from the script written long ago, crafting instead a life shaped by your own choices, your own strength, and your own sacred will. The echoes of your mother's stories may whisper, but they need not drown out the voice within you that yearns for freedom, peace, and transformation. Healing is a reclaiming of your narrative from inherited sorrow, a bold and sacred act of taking back the story that was never fully yours to carry alone. It is the moment when the weight of ancestral pain, passed down like a silent burden through generations, meets the fierce light of your awakening soul. This process is not merely about mending wounds or soothing old hurts. It is about standing tall amid the ruins of past grief and declaring that your life will no longer be defined by the shadows cast before you. To heal is to sift through the fragments of inherited sorrow, to hold them with gentle hands, and then to reshape those fragments into a new story, one of resilience, hope, and renewal. In reclaiming your narrative, you wrest control from the unseen hands that have long dictated the terms of your existence, those whispered voices of doubt, pain, and limitation that echo through family histories and cultural scripts. Healing demands that you confront these echoes, face the uncomfortable truths buried beneath layers of denial and silence, and speak your truth aloud with courage. It is an unflinching journey inward, where you disentangle your identity from the sorrow that clings like ivy, discovering beneath it a core of strength and possibility waiting to bloom. This reclamation is a sacred rebellion, a refusal to be a passive vessel for the pain of the past, and instead becoming an active creator of your own destiny. The path of healing is never linear nor easy. It asks for patience, compassion, and relentless bravery. It asks that you honor the pain, grieve what must be grieved, and then rise with the fierce determination to rewrite your story on your own terms. Healing is a reclaiming not just for yourself, but for those who came before you and those who will follow. It is the transformative alchemy that turns inherited sorrow into wisdom, silence into voice, and wounds into wells of strength. Through this reclamation, you reclaim your power, your peace, and your place in the world as the author of a new chapter, one forged from the depths of your own reclaimed narrative. Embracing the truth about your mother is not a journey for the faint of heart. It is a courageous act that requires peeling back the layers of illusion, denial, and longing that have long protected your heart from pain. To face the truth, raw, imperfect, and often painful, is to step into a realm where healing begins in its most profound and transformative form. This truth may reveal wounds once hidden, mistakes once forgiven too easily, or love that was complicated beyond simple understanding. Yet within this brave confrontation lies the seed of wholeness. By holding your mother's truth without fear or judgment, you allow yourself to release the shackles of confusion and resentment that bind your spirit, paving the way for a deeper freedom that is both spiritual and emotional. In embracing this truth, you begin to reclaim your power from the tangled web of past hurts and unmet expectations. No longer trapped in the shadows of what should have been, you step into the light of what is, honoring the complexities of her humanity, and in doing so, honoring your own. This acceptance does not diminish your pain, but it transforms it, turning it into a source of strength and clarity. You come to see that your mother, with all her flaws and gifts, is a vital thread in the tapestry of your life, shaping you but not defining you. This liberation from denial and idealization is a powerful act of self-love that opens space for growth, compassion, and empowerment. To embrace your mother's truth fully is to open a door to becoming whole, integrated in mind, body, and spirit. It frees you from the fragmented self that clings to unresolved emotions and unmet needs, inviting you instead to step into a fuller version of yourself. It is through this freedom that empowerment blossoms, for when you claim the truth of your past, you no longer carry it as a burden, but wield it as a source of wisdom and resilience. This empowerment is quiet yet mighty, a steady force that grounds you as you navigate your path with grace and authenticity. Embracing the truth about your mother is, therefore, not an end, but a sacred beginning, a threshold through which you walk into wholeness, freedom, and the radiant power of your own becoming.